So hello everyone and welcome to this CIPD Birmingham branch event, and thank you for joining us at lunchtime today. So today's session is with Fiona Anderson and Jill Munden, and it's the first of a two-part session on the future of work leading with competitive edge in today's world. And I know it's going to be a highly interactive session, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. So Jill, if you could move on to the next slide. This is just a reminder that you can contact the Birmingham branch online in several different ways. We've got a website, we've got a LinkedIn group, and we've got Twitter. So do make contact with us so that you can keep in touch with what activities the branch has got planned. And if you go on to the next slide, we can just a few ground rules for the online event today. You will be muted, but do use the chat box to ask questions. And I'm sure Jill and Fiona will say, since it's a fairly small number, they'll be quite happy for you to come off mute and chat as well. The slides and the recording will be sent out afterwards, and you'll also get a survey monkey. So we'd be really keen to get your feedback on the event. And again, it does help if you can use your full name so that we know who's joined us today. I think the next slide is going to give us an overview of some of the other events that we've got coming up. So as I said, this is the first of a two-part series, and part two is the same time next week on Thursday lunchtime. We're arranging a student networking event. Actually, since I put this slide together, that was planned for next Thursday. We are looking at moving that because some of the people organising it have unfortunately got COVID, so we're not going to be in a position to hold that. So look out for another date for that one. The next special interest group for those who coach and mentor others is this is organised jointly with North Staffs and South Cheshire branch, and that's on after Easter on the 26th of April. And you can book that through their branch website. And the independence group will be meeting again on the 6th of May. We don't have that one up on Eventbrite yet because we're just waiting for the venue to be confirmed, because we are hoping to run that one as a face-to-face event. And finally, just a reminder for CIPD members on the next slide as to the benefits that you can access with your CIPD membership. Do have a look online. You'll see the various helplines and knowledge hubs and resources that are available to you. So with that, I am now going to pass over to Fiona and Jill, who's going to run today's session.
So thank you. Here we go. Thank you ever so much, everyone. It's lovely to see you, and please do come on camera if you can. So leading with competitive edge in today's world, my goodness, so much is going on, isn't it? And who'd have thought we'd have so much complexity even coming out of COVID? So a little bit about ourselves, but before I introduce Jill, I'd like to, oh, she's gone. Come back, Eleanor. Eleanor. It's your last day if you're still there. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Eleanor, who throughout COVID, throughout the last 12 years, we've been working very, very closely. Eleanor has been our, well, she's been our everybody. She her knowledge of the CIPD, her support for the CIPD, and it's her last day today. So I want to say personally, on camera and on video, huge thanks to you. Oh. Gosh, you will be missed. So thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, everyone. Well, I miss you too.
Great partnership. Thank you so much from all of us. Really appreciate it. So we are here today as a joint CIPD and Engage for Success event, bringing everybody together. So some people will know me from my Engage for Success steering group role. Some people will know me from my CIPD volunteering role. My background is in leading significant change, both as a leader, manager, then moving into consultancy, setting up strategic change management within Royal Mail, working across a variety of sectors. And then when I became self-employed, I identified myself as a change management person. And people kept saying, Fiona, you need to niche, you need to niche. And probably about good 10, 12 years later, I thought, yeah, culture change. I absolutely love working with people and behaviours all around culture. So that's a bit about myself. Jill, over to you to introduce yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Jill, and I'm a master accredited executive coach and change consultant. So that change stuff that Fiona is talking about, I've spent the last 25 years working with senior leaders and their teams to really, I think the key theme is always about creating great cultures where people can perform at their best and really be at their best bring their best every single day. And I absolutely love the work that I do. It's an absolute privilege to me to work in this area. And I'm really looking forward to sharing our insights from the last couple of years in particular, and how that has had that impact on leadership today. So yeah, handing back over to Fiona, that's me.
So I appreciate it's lunch. Do join in where you can, and enjoy your lunch at the same time. So we did have 59 people booked in, normal sort of dropout. We love having you with us. So thank you very much indeed. So next slide then, please, Jill. So this afternoon, we call it now, isn't it? We will really want to help you look at how you grab the attention of your executive team, how you grab the attention around this intangible thing called culture and people, and how they add value in your business. So we're going to be doing that through these topics as we go through today. We're going to be giving you some techniques you can use, some pragmatic ideas to take back into your workplace, and then add to that in part 2, which is the same time next week. So let's hope we see you there then. Thank you, Jill.
So to start with, one of the most effective routes to claiming a competitive edge in today's world is through your people. And it's really interesting to look back at the early 1900s. The phrase, "the customer is king," was first coined by Harry Selfridge himself. And it's really interesting to us that there are still a lot of leaders out there who believe that the customer is king, and it's predominantly because they see that the customer is the one that's bringing the money in to their business, and actually what they're seeing is that their employees are draining their business of the money. So it's an interesting perspective, and one that we're absolutely going to be flipping on its head today, because we really want to focus in on the employee and the employee experience. So this is our people. And it's really thinking about all those things that enable our people to perform and to be at their best, because that clearly feeds the customer experience. Everything about what the customer experience is about our organization, that then ultimately feeds the bottom line. So this is our phrase. This is about your people grow your business. So rather than just looking at the generic statements, we really believe in tangible evidence. And so let's just look at some of the tangible evidence that's out there that the research is telling us. The first thing is 40%. The latest McKinsey report is reporting 40% of employees are currently thinking of leaving their organization. This is massive. And when you then bring in the idea that the cost of staff turnover can be anywhere between £15,000 to £22,000 per employee that leaves, that is potentially enormous. I mean, just gives you an example. If you're looking at an organization of 500 staff, and you say 40% of those staff are actually looking at leaving in the next 3 months, say, that could equate to over £3 million. And so, yeah, this is a lot of money, and it needs to be taken seriously.
And I don't know about you, has anybody found a really good source of employee engagement data recently? Because it's kind of difficult to grab hold of, and be interesting to hear what's happening in your businesses. But this is last year's 2021 Gallup data. And they are saying last summer that the employee engagement in UK and Europe is 11%. 11%. And it was about 25% where employees were actively engaged in the UK before COVID. So that's a huge drop if that's a drop in the UK. And as I say, it's difficult to grab the data now. If anybody has got access to it, I think if you get the Gallup report and you pay for it, you get much more specific data. There are 3 kind of categories in employee engagement data. they identify people as actively engaged. Those are the people who offer that discretionary effort to jump in and who works the extra hours and really, really sell the business for you, and they're so loyal to the business. And we've got the people who are engaged. They turn up, they do a day's work, and they're more than comfortable with that in their life, that good day's work. We can rely on them. And then we've got a proportion of the people we call actively disengaged. So actively disengaged are those mood hoovers, as often referred to. They are the naysayers. They are the ones that are negative about everything. They drag the people down with them, often sick more often than other people are having to carry them. And if we look at the data around how much they're costing, so looking at the actively disengaged people, they cost your business 1/3 of their salary. So if you think, look at your staff survey or your employee survey data, have a look and see what proportion of your staff, what percentage of your staff are actively disengaged, work out what that costs you in the salary bill, on average, and then work out 30% of that salary cost. How much are they costing your business? And then the other data that we've identified with is that a positive culture, alternatively, much more in your actively engaged, that positive culture can increase your company revenue by four times. That's huge, isn't it? Huge. How many of us would like that? Yes, please. Over to you, Jo.
And companies with highly engaged people, as Fiona's referred to, on the positive side, they actually have 17% higher productivity and 21% more profits. It's incredible. And then the last bit is just looking at customers and the reaction that customers have when they have a negative experience. 51% actually say that they will never do business again after just one negative experience. That's enormous.
And that's me. That's me. I went to our local coffee shop that Jill and I have often met in, and other colleagues met him just towards the end of probably the second lockdown it was. It was dirty. I haven't been back since. And yet I was such a loyal customer up till then. Really interesting. Just one thing can make that big difference, can't it? Thank you, Jill.
So yeah, this is just some data, but obviously there's lots around. And I just think this kind of data is incredibly strong in terms of the business case for investing in leadership and culture. And as Fiona has mentioned, it is very fluffy and intangible. And so let's actually work on this and put the figures in to actually make it stand out and something that can really help execs to see the benefits of investing.
So thank you, Flora Jane. You're doing your wonderful work. I did say to Jill, Flora Jane's on. She'll provide us with all the extra data and links. So here we are. Flora Jane's given us a link in CIPD to some later data. Thank you, Flora Jane. So what one thing has the major impact on the employee experience? So what is that reality today? And it is culture. It's culture that makes that biggest difference. And the reality today, let me share some examples from our recent CIPD meeting, where one of my colleagues said 40% of our new recruits, now we've just seen how much new recruits cost, 40% of our new recruits either don't turn up on day one or have gone by the end of the first week. That's enormous. That's enormous. And then one of the other colleagues from HR said, it's 28% in my company. And then when I met with an HRD recently, he said, last week, he said, now you've said that, I need to go back and look at this in our organization. He said, because last week I know, and these were recruits into HR, one of them turned up at Birmingham New Street, couldn't find their way to us, so went back home. Another person arrived in the car park, saw she had to pay for it, turned right round and went back home, not to be seen again. So how much is it costing? What a lot of businesses and executive teams particularly consider to be that pink and fluffy stuff, the soft stuff. How much is that impacting on our bottom line? And how are you helping in your recruitment to help the candidate identify that you are that right company that they want to work with? Or are you still one-sided, where it's about them wanting to come and work with us? Actually, today is about how do you help them understand that they want to come and work with you? How do you make that emotional connection? When you send out the contract by email, what have you sent in the post as a little gift to let them see and understand how valued they are and will be to your business going forward? So really think about how we go into that, helping people to understand they are a valued employee. So thank you, Jill. In our experience, what we find going into businesses is that managers and leaders tend to be quite good at what people do, being quite directive, being clear about objectives. How many of you actually have objectives and understandings all around behaviours? How many of you bring that culture to life in your business around how you do things, behaviours and attitude, and how do you live it through your leadership? Because we find that the skills are lacking in the how, the skills and the confidence and the courage to be able to give people feedback, to be able to set those very clear expectations around behaviours, to lead them themselves. Those skills and that courage and confidence are lacking in business. So let's have a look at the next slide then, please, Jill, where we're looking at what is culture. Gosh, how would you describe it? Well, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Well, that's all very well, but what does that mean? That means the impact it has. And in our world, it's like a jelly. It wobbles. Something you sense when you go into an organization or even working with them online as to how they interact, what sort of chat they have, how they land in, whether they're on camera or not. We sense it. And certainly I remember working in a specific organization in Birmingham and having to find the leader as I left at the end of the day to describe my experience of their culture. Because so often you're immersed in a company and you don't see the reality, you don't sense the reality, but I could tell through the way people were, well, the energy or lack of it. I could tell how demotivated they were by the way they dressed, by the facial expressions, by the lack of energy in the building. And I don't know about you, but walking into somewhere in those days when we did, that energy tells you so much, that reception that you get when you walk into that building or you don't get. So think about new recruits. What experience, that employee experience is so important. What experience are they getting when they walk into a building for that interview? Are they expected? Does anybody have their name? Do they know what to say to them and how to welcome them and give them a nice magazine that might be of interest to them about the company while they wait? Offer them a drink? Or what reception do you get when you land online and the camera, you're suddenly there? What conversations do you have to have that human experience for that potential employee that you're looking to recruit? So Jill, it is all about the experience, because our employee experience, remember, creates our customer experience. And so it's defined by the values and the behaviors that underpin those values. Please, if you've got your values stuck on the wall, take them off immediately, because if they have to be on the wall, they're not happening in the business. You need to be doing something completely different. Sticking values on the wall means nothing. In fact, I can remember as a young manager just wanting to step on a chair and rip them down, given the behaviors I was receiving from a manager at that time. So it's about being very clear about behaviors, about what's acceptable and what's not, about setting objectives around behaviors. And it's about how that all fits into achieving your vision, your business purpose, your strategic goals and priorities. And as I said earlier, it's about that experience to work, and in a work as an employee, that energy, that collaboration, that togetherness, that being a human being. And how do you then align your culture with the processes and the technology that you've got in your business? So for example, many of you, I'm sure, have identified or brought in agile working. Great methodology, wonderful language, lots of sort of processes and terminology. And then guess what? They try and pull the budget down. Bang, the old system comes into place. And guess what? That new culture, all energized, invested in hugely, just dies, because that part of the whole system is misaligned and still in the old bureaucracy that lives in the organization and gets in the way of progression. Thank you, Jill. So we've identified over the years that if the business is not focusing on culture, it's because the executives don't get it. And so how do you get that logical buy-in at executive level into something that's pink and fluffy, that's completely intangible? So thank you to those of you who have completed the online profile. We've identified 7 components. Jill, do you want to go to the next one, please? We've identified 7 components that help you to identify and bring to life the reality of the culture in your business. And this is the collective. So for those of you who did complete prior to joining today, thank you so much. Those that did, we've compiled your input into this, what is part of the report you would get back from us. This is the RAG rating for a highly productive culture, where we've identified 7 key components that are impacted by your culture. All of these are the employee experience. And for you, if you were a team, then you would be quite concerned about the costs of the culture. And having undertaken this report yourself, you might then, I would suggest, to invite your executives to complete it individually as well. So here we've got a report we can hold up to our executive team. We can encourage them and facilitate a workshop bringing them together by completing their own report, getting their own results, and then comparing their perception of what the culture is as an executive team. And even more powerfully, we could get the whole of the organization to identify the reality of the culture in this business. And that's something we could talk about, how we bring that together for you. But this is a very simple diagnostic, and it really is about making the invisible visible, about bringing to the attention for specifically executives how their culture is impacting their business, is impacting their performance, is impacting their bottom line. It takes just a few minutes to complete, and I'll put the link in shortly for those who haven't yet. And please do complete your own report to have a look and see what's happening in your business. One team I was working with recently identified that their culture was costing them 1.4 million a year. Wow, what could you be doing with 1.4 million in your business? And here's an example of how toxic culture, and thank you, Flora Jane, you're mentioning toxic culture, impacts on a business. And guess what? This is an HR department that we were called in to work with. The HRD was an interim, couldn't believe what was happening, couldn't really understand what was happening. And by using one-to-one interviews, this is their reality that they were working in. Now, who would want to be working there? Who would want to stay more than a day in that organization? They knew there was something wrong. They just couldn't understand what it was. And in undertaking this, it was quite a deep dive, interviewing everybody in the department. This is the picture that was created. And they couldn't escape this. This is making the intangible tangible in a different way. So next slide then, please, Jill. And the culture that they wanted to achieve was so completely the opposite. So you can see the more words, the more frequently that they were repeated. Trust, transparency, open communication, listening. And this gave us the opportunity to create 4 values, identify 4 values for them, and then help them to identify the behavioral changes that they needed to adapt and adopt in their business. And very quickly they identified and were able to progress forward. They were completely stuck until we came in and held up this mirror. Thank you. So we'd like you to take you, but before we take you forward into where we are now, we'd like you to sort of backtrack. Please, in your browser or using your phone, enter menti.com and please access the code that's up there, 4386 6432. I'll open it shortly and have a look and see how we're progressing. But I'd like you to think back. Pre-COVID, gosh, 2 years ago, what was the culture like in your workplace pre-COVID? So 3 words. So this is a technique that you can be using back in your workplace for you to get a very quick temperature for what is happening in your company. So I'm just going to open up Menti and see how many we've got. So look forward to seeing you online. Just 3 words to describe your company culture pre-COVID, and we'll come back and look at this once we've looked at where we're at now.
This is a really great exercise and something that Fiona and I have used a lot within teams, executive teams, and it's just so fascinating in the moment to get, you know, it's all done anonymously, so everybody's just putting in their reality, and it's just fantastic to bring it in the moment and feedback what everybody in the room has said, and the realization you see on people's faces as they actually see what others have said can be incredibly powerful.
So we've got 6 people contributed so far. If any more can join us over the next few minutes as Jill continues through the presentation, be great to hear from you. 7 already contributed, so thank you. We will reveal shortly. Thank you.
Just do let us know in chat if you've got a problem with it at all and you need any help, but hopefully it should be fairly straightforward. So just going on to remind ourselves of the environment that we're working in here. You know, what is the context? And coming back to, I want to use the term VUCA. This is probably something that everybody's familiar with, but if you're not, it was a term that was used way back in the post-Cold War era. And it was coined by the US Army to describe the worldwide instability back then. And it became popular again in the early 2000s, particularly with regard to the complexity that the significant advancements in technology were creating. And if I just talk through the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity and the ambiguity that are hitting us as organizations and businesses now. When we think about the last few years, what we've been going through, it's enormous. With Brexit on its own was enormous. And then we were hit with a pandemic. And the urgency, the threat of the environment has really got a grip, and recognizing we can't carry on like this. And then you've got the Ukrainian war and all the political and economic implications that we've got in front of us. That's just to name a few of many. And so you can understand the complexity. Now that VUCA is no longer VUCA, we have got VUCA cubed, because of the absolute enormity and complexity of the environment in which we are now operating. So we need to now think about what the employees in reality have been experiencing during this period of time of VUCA cubed. And we're interested to hear your responses. So perhaps you can just use chat to note down some of the things that you think are very pertinent to this question of what have, in reality, employees been experiencing over the last few years. And as you do that, I'm going to just share with you our view and of the perfect storm. And so these were the things that were obviously the negatives. And so increased levels of work pressure have really hit some more than others. With people going on furlough, that has increased workloads significantly for those that were left. And then as people came back, it was readjusting, and the enormous pressure that the businesses were under and what that has created for individuals. And then going back to when people were working remotely, you know, they had these blurred boundaries between work and life that they'd never experienced before, which with the high workloads was really created a lot of stress and anxiety. The issues around teamwork and the lack of camaraderie that people were experiencing, it didn't bring them the joy that they were used to having, the informal peace that they would enjoy in and around the office. And the sense of belonging, this is a really core part of engagement when people feel like they belong. That really took a hit. And there were a lot of very lonely people who felt very disconnected. And there was some people described that they really felt a lack of support from their managers in particular. You know, these were managers that were absolutely up to their eyes in work themselves. And one of the things that dropped off for them was recognizing that they needed to keep in more contact than they would have been necessarily in the office. Consequently, relationships suffered. The rapport between people, the trust between people and their bosses. And consequently, there was a real wavering in confidence in their boss, in their connection with this organization. And there was also a reduction in people taking sick leave. You know, when you were working from home and you were sick, you would just keep working. And also people just didn't take the holiday, either because they just didn't want to, they didn't have time because they were so overloaded with work. Consequently, we've really seen how it's taken its toll on people in the workforce, and how people are burnt out. They're absolutely exhausted and burnt out. And finally, people really started questioning the norms of working. You know, this was something that they hadn't recognized before, and they were really starting to pull and stretch the boundaries and think about what this could be going forward. Fiona, is there anything else do you think to contribute to that from the chat?
Yes, there's a lot of people agreeing and adding to it. And Richard said from VUCA to Bani, B-A-N-I. That's not one we've come across. Did you come across that then, Jill? Richard?
Yes. Richard, do you want to comment? Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I'm
Thank
remoting across. You can't use Zoom in the office. It's a piece of research by someone in Germany who's proposing that VUCA has moved on to BANI, and now you're going to test me, brittle, anxious, something and something off the top of my head, but it's a further development. It's about extending what VUCA is, but I find it really quite insightful. I think it's backed up or is similar to what you're saying in The Perfect Storm here.
Thank you. And so certainly that's one we'll have a look at and add to. Thank you. And very much the stress is coming out, the impact of stress, the impact of well-being, mental health is coming loud and clear here as well. Krishna, you were saying, was it 20 to 30% increase there? So it's, brittle, here we go, brittle, anxious, non-linear and incomprehensible. Wow, Very powerful words, aren't they? Yeah. Great. So we'll have a look at that one. Thank you, Richard.
Okay, and we're going to go on
Krishna.
to this. Oh,
it was Krishna that gave us the definition there. Thank you, Krishna.
I must admit, I didn't know it. I just looked it up and I was like, oh, I'm really relating to all of those things. So thank you, Richard, for sharing.
The joys of this network. It's just wonderful.
Absolutely. So we're just going to now think about the positives that have come as well. So it's not all negative. So we're calling it the silver lining. So it has given evidence at last that there is no need for some people to be in the office full time. That actually it can create an increase in productivity by cutting out the commute time and the distractions, of course, that people experience when they're in and around others in the office. More time for well-being. People have really enjoyed the ability to just go out, maybe for a walk or a run, or get out to the gym in their lunch hour or before work, in a way that they weren't able to when they were commuting in and out of the office. It also enabled them to really reconnect with their family, and they want to retain that. So it's giving them that life balance. And it's really been interesting to hear people's experiences of being remote and actually seeing into other people's homes and perhaps being introduced to their children and to their families, and actually seeing that and being part of that has really helped to strengthen and deepen their relationships in many ways with their colleagues. And then there's also the opportunity that it has created in local communities. You know, so many people just had not spent time in their community, getting to know people and recognizing the support and the needs within their community. And that's a wonderful opportunity that people have found and really started to utilize. So was there anything to add to that in the chat, Fiona, the silver lining? Yes,
so there's a lot of agreement again, thank you. The becoming more human appears, you know, is the words, some words coming out. The flexibility around work-life balance. However, we're still meeting people who expect those bums on seats. So how do we manage that? Yeah. And we'll be looking at that.
So it's interesting for us to take that context and to be thinking about those employee experiences and what that is now feeding through in terms of the expectations that employees now have of their employer and their relationship. And so the first point is about control. They feel like they have more control and they want it. They're loving this control, and they want more of this. And you know, when you consider the proportions now of the different generations, we've got 4 generations working alongside each other in the workforce now. And in some cases, you could even stretch it to 5. But with the younger generations, the millennials and the Gen Zers, you know, for them in particular, personal purpose is really, really important. And you look at things like, you know, the environment for them is so important. Well-being is so important, perhaps in some ways more important. You know, they're seeing that as more important than the older generations had experienced at the same age. And so really what they're looking for is alignment between this purpose and values that they hold strong and their company's purpose and values. They want to be able to contribute and that through their work, the time, you know, you spend so much time at work that they want to have the ability to contribute and to see the synergy between that, and for that to be really truly evident through their employee experience. The blend of work and well-being with life balance is really important to them, and that's what they're really starting to expect. And actually, as I referred to earlier, there is a really huge crisis in well-being. I believe at this point, you know, people are really burnt out. And, you know, I've got some really interesting examples that I've just recently been watching through clients where they have been so stretched with enormous workloads, and they've actually just thought, right, it's an employee-led market now, job market. And I've got more confidence than I've ever got right now to just find another job. And I'm going out there and I'm taking control of this, because I'm not going to tolerate this imbalance that I have and the lack of well-being, and I'm going to vote with my feet, and they've done that. And it's now recognizing for employers what this is doing in their relationship, and where they have really got to pay more attention. And this well-being is a really big one. Flexible working, again, is another biggie. The employees absolutely want to have that flexible work. And I'm just thinking about one of my clients right now who has been very, very rigid in saying we are a work from work organization. And they have absolutely had to come to a different perspective because of the huge drain of people leaving the organization. They had an enormous retention of people. They had really, really loyal employees that had been with them for 20-25 years mostly, and then suddenly they've seen a huge exodus because they were so rigid, and they are now having to rethink. And so you know, that then follows through into the environment, the workspace that they're using, and where people are working remotely, they've got to take that into account and be ensuring that they've got the right equipment to be able to be serving their productivity at home as well. Personal career and growth is again, for the younger generations, absolutely up there in terms of their values. They want to be with an organization that will really value their growth and development. And finally, collaboration. The younger generations, again, they have grown up with technology. They want to be able to use technology to better effect, and to be able to be more productive, and to therefore collaborate with all the stakeholders inside and outside the organization. Anything to add to these expectations that we've seen?
So Flora Jane's mentioning how difficult it is when managers and leaders aren't in the same building, and that communication, that connection between them and that gap is making a difference, and impacting on employees' expectations.
Yeah, interesting.
Or even if they come in and they don't know the role, and they've changed position to that role, and they don't know what's going on, that can also have a massive effect, because the people that are already there, they know what they're doing, and then they've got no one to ask because their team leader or new manager doesn't know the department, which can have a massive negative effect on everyone as well.
Huge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The gaps get bigger somehow, don't they, even though it's face to face. So having to say the energy and the joy when people are coming back face to face is phenomenal. Let's not forget that impact when people do come together, and it's the time that's needed for them to be able to come together to create those links again, isn't it, and understand who's who. Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have a look then at the Menti. I'll share my screen and see if I can find the right one for you. There it is. Except I need to take those down. Not down. So this is the Menti around about the 3 single words to describe your company culture pre-COVID. And do you know what? I'm quite surprised at how negative it is. I actually thought people might be looking back to the good old days when the company culture was a lot better. So it'll be very interesting to see what the gap is when we ask you the next question. So here's your 3 words. So toxic. There are some nice positivities, but looking at it, the negatives and that control that the business had prior to COVID, the behaviours that were unacceptable. Is it big enough for you to be able to see? So toxic, untrustworthy, pressurised, old-fashioned, poor leadership, traditional, hierarchical. So some keywords coming out there, and the positivities are quite low. And I guess that's why you're all here, is to figure out how to improve things. And I wonder how much of this still exists and is getting in the way of where you need to get to. So there's a very positive here. Thank you very much. There is a together, caring, kind. So there's a couple of people probably that were working in a really productive company. With that competitive edge, and I'm guessing the others are struggling because of this legacy culture that might still exist. So what we'd like to do now is invite you, please. I'll come off, Jill, so that you can put up the slide. Is to invite you to contribute into the next question. I'm just going to add it into chat as well for you. We're going to ask you to identify the 3 words to describe the culture needed to attract and retain people now. So important for businesses right now. The war for talent, the big exit, the big transfer of people. People are voting with their feet. So let's capture now online what we think, having understood and seen the difference in terms of your employees' expectations to create that competitive edge, and to be there and want to remain in your company. What are the 3 single words? And I'll go on to, and we are on a different Menti page. So it is you can't continue from the one you had open, please. And thank you to the 12 who contributed. It makes all the difference the more that contribute. So we've got 2 people so far, thank you. Getting in the swing of things here, brilliant. And you see how easy it is to collect this quickly and be able to show it straight away as well. As I say, it was this type of, no, it was the 7 significant signals that helped a department identify 1.4 million it was costing them. Really important to be able to hold the mirror up and give some tangible evidence of how your culture is affecting your business and bottom line. So we've got 6. Jill, shall I go on to the next slide and we'll come back to this Menti, share it in a few minutes?
Yeah. Okay.
So our next workshop is going to be providing some more, hopefully, pragmatic tips and techniques. We're going to be looking at that evolving employee experience. What does that mean for the business? We're going to be looking at what it means for leadership going forward. And we're going to leave you with the opportunity to think through, so what does this mean in terms of culture and our competitive edge? How do we bring the 2 together and help thread them through into the strategic priorities and bring them to the attention of the people who really need to be thinking different? I mean, everybody on here understands, I'm sure, the impact of culture, but how do we take that back into the business? Well, we use the 7 significant signals, we use Menti, and we'll be bringing some other techniques next week as well. Same time, same place, maybe a different Zoom link, but certainly same place probably for most of us. So Jill, shall I share what we've got?
Yeah, great.
Let me open up and by the way, remember, if you're doing Menti, put the results in hidden so that you're not people will be influenced by what's already on Menti. So hide the results until you're ready to share them, as I'm doing now. And let's share screen. Here we go. The difference needed. Inclusive, flexible, caring, compassionate. Compassionate's definitely the word that NHS are moving forward with, isn't it? Huge difference. Words that actually, caring appeared, but none of the others really appeared in the earlier one. So what's the gap in your business between where they were pre-COVID, where you were as a business pre-COVID culture, to getting to here, and how do you help them achieve that? So some very positive words coming out here, some very positive values coming out here. How do you bring them to their attention? How do you bring this to the attention of the executive team? How do you identify them, first of all? How do you bring them to the attention of the executive team and the impact they're having? How do you create that business case? That's something we can offer on one-to-one if you need help, to be able to get that journey and get there as quickly as you can. I would say culture change normally takes 2 years. You haven't got 2 years to create a new culture. You've really got to hit it and make it work, starting with your executives and bringing the whole business with you. And we'll be looking more at that next time. Jill, shall I stop sharing?
Yep, great. Okay, so just very finally, we've just got a one-time special offer for anybody who would like to have a half-hour consultation with us to talk about any questions or issues that we've raised today that you would really like to dig into. We would be really happy to support you in thinking this through in a little bit more detail, and to be thinking through your specifics from your organization. We're also both very happy to offer anybody who's interested in executive coaching the opportunity to come and have an exploratory half-hour call with us, with the potential to get a discount. We've got a limited amount of time that we can give to this, but we're really happy to put that offer out there for the first people that come along and contact us. But really, we really hope to see you next week for our part 2, because what we've done today is very much about setting the scene and really helping you to recognize the impact of the environment and the reality for employees and the culture, giving you some ideas as to the tools that you can use to raise these issues at senior levels. And then we're going to be bringing next session more specifics around what it is that you and the senior leadership can do to really make inroads and have an impact to creating the culture, the descriptors that Fiona's just shown that you've pulled together very nicely.
So our huge thanks to you. And Sue, absolutely, have they got a growth mindset or not? We can help them create that. And that's something we are working with a client right now in doing, in helping them transition from the very negative place they're in to something much more positive. Anne and I are working on that. So thank you for joining today, Anne. Lovely to see you. So thank you. Do hope it's been of value. There will be a recording. I don't know where it's going to live, but if anybody's interested, do let us know. And we look forward to seeing you next week. That'll fly by. We'll be in April. Hey.
Wow.
And here's Eleanor on our very last session. Thank you, Eleanor.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you all very much. Great to see you.
Thanks.